I guess my concern with this entire dialogue is that the romance is gone. You know, we're analyzing everything. We're looking at statistics. We're looking at socioeconomic levels and all that. But a marriage is
not working.
It is just that the romance is all gone. There's no
it exists.
date night with your husband anymore. That's not what we're talking about. You know, when we talk about marriage, it's such a clinical discussion that we're having. And, you know, if you're going to resort to a clinical discussion about anything, maybe it's not something that's right for you.
But as you know, marriage is more than romance. It's a partnership. It requires things that are sometimes unromantic and unpleasant. And I think the romance part of a relationship does exist. And I think in some ways, marriage adds a whole lot of responsibility onto that romantic aspect. Therefore, people just prefer to cohabitate because they don't want to take on that responsibility.
I just celebrated my 10-year anniversary with my husband, Darshan
Congratulations.
Verma. Thank you. He's one of the hosts that comes on the show occasionally. We just celebrated our 10-year anniversary. We've spent a good number of years working together. We're raising 2 children together, and there's a lot of, you know, can you do the dishes today, and I'm going to do the laundry, and there's a lot of that, but, you know, we make it a point, and I think this is important for everyone in a relationship. We really make it a point to have some romance. You know, whether it's a date night, whether it's just a call to say, hey, I just wanted to say hi, I love you, honey, I'll talk to you later, I'm not going to see you tonight because I'm coming home at 10 o'clock at night, or something like that. we make it a point to remind each other that we're loved. And I think a lot more people who are so caught up in the day-to-day struggles of what life is, you know, there's a lot of work just to struggle on and move forward. We need to go back to remembering why we chose each other.
Slowing down a little bit.
Absolutely.
We're all so over-structured and over-scheduled that we maybe do forget. I think you're right. You know, my mother-in-law moved in with us and will be with us for the next 6 months, which is great. It actually is fantastic. She's a wonderful woman, raised a wonderful son. But it's like I got a wife out of the deal. I mean, she's like doing all of the cooking and wants to like clean the house, which has freed up a whole lot of time for my husband and I to actually have a conversation together, which helps. But everybody doesn't have that luxury of, you know, and you know, when God, if we ever have children, talk about over-structuring things. Well, it'll totally stress us out.
You know, to that point, I was reading this article in the New York Times that actually surprised me because there are so many overworked moms, as we know. Maybe they're even stay-at-home moms who are not balancing work outside the home and inside the home. But even with the children and the home, there are all these school responsibilities. Volunteering at your children's schools, which takes up a great deal of time because we're talking about all kinds of, not just PTA meetings, but school functions and holiday fairs and all kinds of things that require evening work, weekend work, sometimes early mornings. And there were women interviewed for this article in the New York Times saying, we're pushing back, we're saying no. The schools are fed up because they don't have the budget, and we can't volunteer, you know.
Is that what you're
Count me in as one of the no's. I work 50 to 60 hours a week. There are several nights a week where I don't even see my children because the babysitter has put them down for bed before I've come home. The time that I do have, the extra time that I do have, I'm not sharing with the school. My kids are mine during those hours. You know, between going to work, getting the kids ready for school, working on homework with them, having that romance with my husband, which is something very important to us. You know, the 2 o'clock in the afternoon holiday party for which I need to bring M&Ms is going to have to go. You know, I'm sorry. You know, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm leaving my office at 1 o'clock. I virtually only worked a few hours that day, and I haven't finished all my work. It's not going to work for me.
Do you feel judged by the other mothers, though? That I think it's peer pressure. It's not so much over scheduling. It's peer pressure.
Well, I've been very strategic in surrounding myself with other overworked mothers, so no one's going to judge.
I wonder if your article talks about this, is how many of these women are single parents? You know, part of this marriage article focused on the fact that women are having kids outside of marriage. In fact, some are doing it without a man. In other words, they are financially sound and able to have babies on their own. So they are. And in fact, look at these statistics. They were shocking to me. Among the various different demographics, they looked at the percentage of single parents, moms, basically. And among the white population, it went from somewhere in the 5-7% in 1960 to 29% in 2008. Among Hispanics, it went from somewhere around 30% to 53%. And then among the black population, it went from about 40 to 72%.
Wow.
So what it says is there's a lot more kids who are born outside of a traditional framework of marriage. That's not to say that it's a good or bad thing. I think you can make it work. But the fact is you have a lot more people who are born into a world where that parental structure, the two-parent home, just isn't their reality. So what is the likelihood of them growing up and wanting to get married because they didn't grow up in that structure in the first place?
Right. Well, you know, we're in the transition phase from what we consider traditional norms to a transition to, you know, what works for your family. Every family is different, and every family has to determine what's going to work for them. I can't do the PTAs, I can't do certain things, but conversely, I do what I can. And my kids see that. And I'm hoping, I mean, they're very young still, so I'm hoping that they appreciate what mommy and daddy do as opposed to what we can't do.
The peer pressure thing is important because now we have social networks. We have Facebook. We're Twittering ourselves all over the place. So you're hearing what all the other moms are doing, what the other people are doing, and you sometimes do feel inadequate because you're not doing enough, or you're not Twittering enough, or you're not putting your life on display as much. And I think it's a significant cause that will cause problems down the road. I mean, these are things we're going to have to keep an eye on.
I mean, my mother was one of those mothers who came on every field trip, did, you know, when they cut the arts program at my school, she stepped in and did art programming and teaching to all of the school kids. I mean, like, she was sort of Martha Stewart and out of control. But it's funny, when even as a child, I remember thinking, not every mother can do this, and so my mother is doing what a lot of mothers can't, and she's that's great that we can help.
Right.
Well, so, and I think one of the points in the article too, there are a few parents who are doing all of this. It's not like many of the parents in the school, many of the mothers of the children attending the school are volunteering all these hours of time. It's really just a handful. So that handful feels a lot of pressure. And there is this kind of, I feel like I'm a good mother if I'm doing this. But at the same time, some of these moms were saying, I'm spending less time with my kids because I'm busy planning school activities. So now it seems like this is a disconnect.
And why does the school have to have so many activities? I mean, that's the other reality. I mean, really, do we have to have like cupcake